All right, do we have a motion to close? Just kidding. All right, welcome everybody to the December 11th, 2024 City of Edina Planning Commission meeting. On behalf of the rest of the Planning Commission, we welcome you here, to those especially in person and also those tuning in remotely. I say it each time, but your curiosity, your participation, and your feedback is vital as we navigate change together here in Edina, specifically regarding the ways in which we'd like to use our land. So tonight is like similar nights where we have a public hearing. We have just one tonight, and I'll give you some instructions before that begins. Actually, we might not have much up to them, but yeah, just hold tight. Quick rundown of the agenda, just so you know what to expect, is we'll have a call to order, then roll call. Then we'll have an approval of tonight's agenda as well as the prior meeting's minutes. Then we get into our community comment period, which is your chance for those who are here in person to testify about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. So we appreciate your engagement in doing that. After that, we have our public hearing, and I will get into that more specifically once that arises, but that's your chance to testify about the public hearing that's on tonight's agenda. And then we wrap up with reports and recommendations, chair member comments, staff comments, and then adjournment. It's important to know that any and all feedback that's made its way to the city has made its way to us, and we consider that before we make our recommendations for approval or denial. Without further ado, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And then roll call.
Commissioner Alkire?
Here.
Commissioner Padilla? Here. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw? Here. Commissioner Day?
Here.
Commissioner Fell? Here. Chair Bennett?
Here. Next, we have the approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Welcome a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. So moved. Next, we have the approval of the prior meeting's minutes on November 13th.
Motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right, next, as I mentioned, we have our community comment period. So this is your chance for anyone who is here, any of the 6 out there. If you'd like to, you can come to a podium and you have 3 minutes to speak about a matter not on tonight's agenda. Please state your full name, your address, and you'll see the light turn green when your time starts and turn red when your time's out. And we ask you to wrap up your comments then. Anyone here for that period of the agenda? See some, yep, side to side, like a tennis match. All right, so we will move on. We'll close that period of the agenda and on to our public hearing. So as mentioned, we have one public hearing tonight. It's a variance of section 36-437 of the city code to allow for a 10.6 foot front yard setback variance at 4701 White Oaks Road. As with most public hearings, this is what you can expect. So an applicant, whether it's a resident or a developer or whoever, puts in a formal application, and that triggers a 60-day period for us to make a decision. City staff does some research. They put together a staff report, and they collaborate with other commissions or departments like engineering, and they provide a recommendation for approval or denial to us. They use that report to kind of prepare this presentation that you'll see tonight. We have an exchange with staff, get some questions answered. Then we open it to the applicant to provide their own presentation if they'd like. Similar exchange. And then after that, we open it to the public hearing, which is your chance for those who are here in person and for those who are tuning in remotely to testify about the matter. After that, we close the public hearing, turn it back to the Planning Commission, and we deliberate and provide our recommendation for approval or denial. So before we kick off, just for those tuning in remotely, want to make sure that you can get in the queue to participate. Please call the following number, 312-535-8110. Enter access code 2634. 0695384. And then the password is 5454. And press *3 on your keypad when you'd like to get in the queue to speak. You don't need to do that now, but I'll cue you to jump in the queue a little later. But without further ado, Planner Ocker, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The request is for a front yard setback variance at 4701 White Oaks Road. The property is located on the north side at the end of White Oaks Road cul-de-sac. This is the existing condition survey of the property. What you'll notice is that the red dashed line are the required setbacks for the property, and that the existing house in the front overlaps into the required front yard setback, as well as just a little bit into the rear yard setback. Currently, the house has a side-loading tuck-under garage on the west side. There is more opportunity to add on in the easterly part of the lot, unfortunately. Their garage is on the westerly portion of the lot where they would like to add on a new garage. The existing garage is undersized for their needs. So this is the existing house. It's up sort of on a hill. You can see that there's a driveway going up, and it actually accesses the garage in the lower level, basement level of the house. Here's the existing front elevation, sort of a corner side view showing that tuck under garage, main floor, and then the floor above. So this is the proposed site conditions. Highlighted in yellow is that garage addition. It will change to a front-loading garage. They will also be doing some remodeling and additions to the existing home. You can see in this area where the overlap of the front yard setback requirement is on the existing home, as well as a little bit in the rear, and then just a little bit for that new addition. The designer tried different options. I was shown a number of them that would be less conforming than this, that would also go into the rear yard. They tried to keep within the area that they could, but it will overlap a little bit in the front yard. However, the existing house is, much further into the setback. You can see in the darker gray area are the areas that are being added on to the footprint, and then the existing is in the lighter gray. And then highlighted in this light blue, the dark blue is, again, the addition portions of the house, and the existing footprint is in red. And the highlighted in the lighter blue is what they're actually asking for a variance for the new portion that will be overlapping into that required setback. This is a landscape plan, so this would be the finished look of the property when done. So lower level, new garage, much more spacious, will allow them more opportunity to store their cars and other things. So then above the garage, they will be adding a room which would be roughly in line with the first floor. There'll be some steps. There is a difference in the different levels. And then the upper level, there will be an addition towards the back, but they are keeping it within the rear yard setback because the first floor, main floor, actually does overlap that a bit. And then here are the elevations of the new house, different views from the east, from north, northwest, west. This is actually the improvement as you would see it from the most affected property that is adjacent just to the west of it. And you can see that the garage is actually tucked under, and that this would be that main floor living area above. This is the southwest views of the home showing that new addition fronting the street and facing the street. And then the view in context with the adjacent neighbor. So for a variance, the Minnesota state statutes requires that a request meet certain standards. The variance would need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is a single dwelling unit. It's low density. It will remain as such, so it does conform to that requirement. The variance would be in harmony with the general and purpose intent of the ordinance. The purpose and intent of the front yard setback ordinance in Edina is that anything that's built is in kind of a consistent front yard setback with adjacent homes or along the block. Unfortunately, you can build deeper than that, and that's what has occurred in some instances, and that can affect the front yard setback opportunity or the opportunity to add on because of the front yard setback for some properties, as is the case with this. The ordinance also does not account for the deep curve of the cul-de-sac, which pushes that opportunity much deeper into the lot. You can see that this house is already non-conforming in the front and rear on the eastern portion of the lot. And we've had, I think, 2 requests that the Planning Commission reviewed this year where there were challenges trying to build on a lot that was adjacent to a cul-de-sac, and I think even both of those had garages that they were trying to load off of the cul-de-sac, and it's a more difficult lot situation to try to design additions to. There are practical difficulties complying with the ordinance. The practical difficulties are caused by the existing location of the home, the requirement for average front yard setback, and the right-of-way based on the average and the impact of that cul-de-sac curvature. That the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances that are unique to the property, not common to similarly zoned properties, and they're not self-created. The house was built where it was or where it is, and it was not as a result of anything that the property owner, they did not build a house, and it, for whatever reason, does no longer conform to the front yard setback standard, and their opportunity for adding on, building onto the house is hindered. Will the variance alter the essential character of the neighborhood? Granting the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The front yard setback of the addition will allow a logical extension of the existing non-conforming home with other zoning requirements in compliance, with the exception of the rear yard setback, but they were conscious of that, and they did not try to continue that non-conforming setback. The building addition will provide a deeper front yard setback than the existing front of the home, and in fact, it's a very minimal amount of encroachment that the new addition will provide into that front yard setback. Staff does recommend approval of the 10.6-foot front yard setback variance from the 44.8-foot requirement. Approval is based on the following findings: practical difficulties caused by the required average front yard setback requirement, cul-de-sac, setback impact, and the existing location of the house. There are circumstances that are unique to this property. Those unique circumstances include having street frontage along that cul-de-sac and having such a narrow buildable opportunity on the western portion of the lot. Had this been typical of homes along a block lined up with one another in a typical lot and block situation, like similarly zoned properties not so far away, it probably would not have required a variance because they would have all been lined up. And that really is sort of the goal, or part of the goal of the ordinance, is that you don't want anything out in front of the other properties that have already been in existence. Unfortunately, they can build further back. The proposal would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and the garage and home addition remodel are similar in design to the house and with matching materials used. The additions will provide a garage setback farther from the cul-de-sac than the non-conforming home. Any approval to the request should be subject to plans and survey dates stamped October 28th, 2024, in compliance with the engineering memo and compliance with the tree ordinance. With that, I will stop and answer questions. The representatives that are present are Margot Vincent and Lynn Shears. They're both with Streeter.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from fellow commissioners for Chris?
I think this is a quick one. Would you please go back to the chart that showed the buildable area? First one, I guess.
you looking at?
Yeah, just for clarity, where is the 10.6 measured?
So, in terms of the variance
variance,
is
yeah.
10.6? Okay, so the average is at 44.8. The current front yard setback, the closest corner, I can't really read it,
Yeah,
is really the difference between what is required and where they're at.
Right.
And this is actually further back
Right.
from that.
so the 10.6 is actually the existing structure,
Yes,
and the actual variance for the new construction is tiny.
It's
Can't see
mini-
how
it's-
tiny, but it's pretty tiny.
it's pretty minuscule, yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, there are some changes to the, I don't know if they're going to be changing some of the roof line in the front on that second floor, but any of those changes would be overlapping into that current non-conforming setback, but it's within the existing building footprint.
Oh, I see. So that's why it needs to be there rather than just where the new garage is because there's probably, or in the plan, there's some changes to the main structure also.
Right.
I got it. Okay, thank you. And on Better Together, there was one comment in favor today. Is there anything else?
We have not received any other comments.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Felt.
$19.40?
Is that it? All right, thank you. This is a chance for the applicant or applicant team to either provide their own presentation or stand for questions. Thank you. Yeah, just come forward and introduce yourself.
Hello, Marco Vincent. I'm a project manager at Streeter. Thank you for having me. Any questions?
Oh, that was uneventful.
Great.
Thank you. That was, oh, wait, we do have one.
Sure.
There we
Oh,
go.
Thank you.
I'll ask a question. So you're keeping most of the exterior of the structure?
Correct. We will
Yeah.
be renovating the exterior structure while maintaining the exterior walls. Currently, the plan is to renovate no more than 15% of the exterior walls of the
Okay.
existing exteriors.
Okay, I appreciate you remodeling and keeping most of the house. That's all.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so time for the public hearing. As mentioned before, what? Oh. As mentioned before, to participate, for those who are in person, we'll let you come, but we'll let people jump in the queue, and there's kind of a lag, so we'll give them at least a minute for that to catch up. So I'll run through the instructions again that are on the screen. Call 312-535-8110. Access code 2634 069 5384. Then enter the password 5454. Then press *3 on your keypad to get in the queue to speak. And while you do that, we'll open it to those who might be here in person that'd like to testify. Same instructions as before. You have 3 minutes to do so. Come up to either podium, state your full name and address, and when the light's red, we'll ask you to wrap up. Anyone here for public hearing? All right, seeing no one rushing into it, I guess we'll turn over to the queue. Do we have anyone in the queue?
No,
Okay,
we'll give it a minute
sure.
or so.
Yeah, how about 30 seconds? It's already been about 30 seconds.
It's been 30 seconds and no one has joined the queue, so I believe it is safe to proceed.
Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So move, the public hearing is closed. All right, so turn it back to the planning commission to deliberate. Anyone have any comments or potential motions? Questions?
I mean,
Yeah.
as Planner Rocker said, this is what, our third cul-de-sac variance request this year. They're all kind of similar in the vein that, we have an ordinance. We understand its intent, but they're always, result in kind of a messy situation where averages get messed up by one or two lots, and clean up like this, very reasonable requests, and I see no reason not to approve.
I would agree. I think, cul-de-sacs is always a curve, and then your home is usually a straight line, and curves and straight lines, there's always a part of it that cuts into it. I think the homeowner really tried to fit the extra garage within that pocket, and I thought that was a good move. The home itself was non-conforming when they first purchased it, so there's not a whole lot they could do about that unless they want to rebuild the entire house. I think this is one where, to Commissioner Day, we've seen quite a lot, and this one seems like it fits really well for a variance from what they're asking for. So I would approve this.
Thank you. Any other comments or potential motion?
Motion to approve the variance as stamped on the drawings dated, whatever staff has, October.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion has been approved. Good luck with the project. Enjoy. All right, thank you, everyone. This is as quick as it ought to have been. All right, we don't have any reports and recommendations. So moving to chair and member comments. Do we have any tonight? Yeah, all
I
right.
just got a really quick one.
Yep,
Just
Commissioner
a
Elder.
brief update on the parking project for 2024. We are on schedule, actually a little bit ahead of schedule, because we have feedback now from Transportation Commission and from Energy and Environment. So draft is complete, reviewed it with Carrie and Addison maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, sent the draft to Transportation, to EEC, have their comments back. So now the job is to create the final draft, and we'll have that routed to the team for review, and then get it in the packet for our meeting on January 15th. So we'll have a chance to talk about it on the 15th. So I guess the only question for you, maybe Chair Bennett, is whether the Planning Commission should receive a draft of, or the final draft before the 10th, so you'd have a chance to read and enjoy every word, or whether, and have more time, or whether just stick it in the packet on the 10th and we'll talk about it on the 15th.
What do you think?
I think the 10th is fine, but if people wanted more time, it could be easily done, because the thing will be done in a week anyway, so no extra work to do that.
What do y'all think? I'm fine with the 10th.
Okay, we'll leave it at that then.
Agreed.
Any other comments, anyone? I think maybe with just one quick update. I don't know if anyone caught the email, but the variance request that was denied last meeting, they're going for an appeal. And we were kind of split on that one. I think it's good to have times when we're split, so we actually so that it brings attention to kind of the process and the conditions. But I think most of us could see why it's split and why they're kind of going for the appeal. And just a couple of comments. I rewatched part of that meeting too, and maybe the time is now to kind of revisit that. I know we also talked about having a more this just came up for work plan stuff, of just a more robust training on, the codes, as well as the process in Edina too. Typically, it's a pretty quick onboarding process here once you join the Planning Commission, and it takes a while to have a thorough understanding of it. But I feel like some of the comments that we had that night kind of deviated a little bit from maybe what the process of a variance is, and that's okay. But I can see why it's split, and I could see why they'd go for an appeal. A couple things that come to mind was there's a notion of like, if the law is very clear, the law is clear, they should conform. But that doesn't preclude someone the chance for applying for a variance and or securing one. So I think even though if a law is clear, like there is a process in place if someone has a reasonable request and they meet the conditions at play. And another comment that came up was, if they did something else or they showed an effort, and I think we saw that tonight of like, in that variance where they kind of fit that garage as tight to those property lines as they could. But one of the conditions with the variance is it's not our job to show that it could be put to any, like a different use. It's just that use that's proposed is reasonable. So I think there's somewhat of a gray area with our discretion that we kind of navigated, but I feel like you can look at it the other way. And I don't know, that's why I sympathize with that vote last week. I feel like I would support their appeal again, but that's just kind of how I voted that night. But as I relook at the conditions and see it, it seems more straightforward than not. But I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to reflect on the vote or just felt like bringing it up.
No, I'm glad you did, because I've been thinking about that a lot too. After we received the copy of the intent to appeal, and just reacting to what you just said. And I think I was the one who made the comment, like, if only they had done A, B, and C, I might have thought differently about it. Maybe that was unnecessary. But I do think it's relevant because, part of our job is to assess practical difficulties. And if a difficulty exists, but that hasn't really been grappled with at all, I mean, is it still a practical difficulty? I mean, it seems like an interpretation, I'm not saying this is the right interpretation, I'm saying an interpretation of that is, if there's a practical difficulty that exists that you haven't tried at all to remediate, I mean, it doesn't seem outside of the box of what we have the discretion to comment on. So I felt, thinking about it some more, I felt okay with that comment, but I could also see how it could come off as somebody trying to tell somebody what to do. So I might have phrased it differently. But I still think the observation is legit.
Yeah, I also, part of it too was, a circumstance was unique on that property, compared to neighboring properties, but it's really like similarly zoned properties. So, I mean, the fact that there was, like an impervious road running through their yard, I mean, that's a unique circumstance. And in itself is the practical difficulty. So, I mean, I can see it. I just felt like bringing it up because I feel like lately we've kind of been sticking really with the books. But that's the whole point of the variance is to find a way to not stick with the books if it's a reasonable request that meets the conditions. I just felt like some of the discussion was very future-oriented, like around stuff that wasn't regarding the request, and some of it was maybe not as accurate to our purview. So just felt like it's worth bringing up and maybe can fuel some discussion for training and other things too, because a lot of it's like trying to understand the code, but it's also the process of applying it. So any other comments?
And the only, I think there was a lot of confusion about some of those pieces and not a lot of clarity. about how they could be dealt with, or the backgrounds, or the reason why they were there, or the reasons. So I think I too understand that we went into the realm of the what may or may not be, but it was difficult to get any clarity about some of those pieces. And that's what I struggled with. If there was some clarity, it would have been easier, I think. But because we couldn't find the background of some of those pieces, or any kind of legal document about that road, it was too nebulous for me. And sometimes I think the discussion is good to have, not coming down one way or the other, saying, but to understand why it's gray, and not necessarily, something we feel comfortable kind of approving. So I think some of the commentary helps put it in its place.
Yeah, no, and like I said, it's healthy we disagree. That shows that we have a good representation up here for the rest of the community. But oftentimes, like after some of those votes, we don't have a chance to like reflect or talk about it. So just felt like I was thinking about it, and then I saw that email come through that they had an intent to appeal. So felt like it was worth bringing up, and maybe we can do that with some other things. I know it's come up of revisiting projects a couple of years down the road and sharing success stories or horror stories. As one gentleman, he's like, I'll stand corrected later, but, appreciate us as good stewards. But I think it helps the community understand too, like when we make the difficult decisions, it's good to look back and show that, hey, this really scary, tough decision ended up being a win for the community. Anyways, any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, just a quick question. Because appeals don't happen often, what is the appeal process? Is it just going to come back again for a review?
If it got approved, it would have ended with us, and they would have been able to do what they applied to do. But the appeal just goes right to City Council for final decision. So it wouldn't come back to us unless they changed some significant portion of their request. And that's just for the variance. I don't know if it's different, Plano Rock, with other things, or if it pretty much just the appeal of our final decision goes to the council.
Right. I mean, it's an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of that particular request. So it's not changing.
Thank you.
Then after that, I think if they can go to court if they don't agree with the city council, but that's pretty much it. So, it does happen.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments from commissioners?
Looking forward to the joint work session on the 17th to go over the zoning audit and findings and start working on that.
I wasn't able to keep up with the city council's meetings, but was there a decision on the Valley View property at all? Did that ever go through? Is there any feedback on that or status? Pizza property that they wanted to build.
The final vote is at the next meeting, next council meeting on the 17th.
Finalized yet.
Public comments ended Sunday on the 8th.
But they did approve the parking variance for Edinburgh Park, the Edinburgh Park Hotel to apartment conversion. That was at the last meeting.
Yes, final comment. We have Commissioner Day back on the commission kind of going forward. We had the two incumbents for city council get reelected, but always support planning commission is a great foundational experience for anyone running, and glad to have you back. Didn't lose you. All right. Staff comments?
No, sir.
Okay. I guess there's one item left.
Motion to close?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 So moved. The meeting's been adjourned.